Hello, and welcome once again to Shooting Left of Center. This is our bi-weekly podcast where we get together, talk guns, and lots of other stuff. As usual, I am the Yankee Marshal, and as usual, I am also joined by Never Enough Ammo and Gun Websites.
What is up, guys?
Hey, thanks for the invite.
Hey, I just saw you just ended your chat. I wanted to see it today, but I didn't get a chance. I'm talking to Never Enough Ammo. I didn't get a chance. I just got home like 25 minutes ago when I got this chat booted up. So I missed your diversity chat. Did you all solve all of the discrimination problems in the gun community tonight?
We did. We had fun. We had all kinds of people from all over the country and all walks of life. And we started off talking about guns, and we did guns for about the first 45 minutes to an hour. And then the last hour was we ran through how are women really oppressed? I was asking. We had two ladies that showed up. One of them was Travis P11's wife, and went through that. And we talked about, is there really a systemic racist cop problem in the country? And is there a systemic problem with race in the country? And is that, we went over that, and then we talked about gay rights and LGBTQ stuff and all kind of, because there was people in the chat from everywhere, so it was cool. It was a really good chat. The one thing we definitely all agree on is gun rights.
Who was the panel then?
Huh? The whole panel?
Who was the panel?
Who was the panel? We had, okay, now I got to remember everybody's names. I literally just met them tonight. Holy shit. So we had Bradford. He's from Florida.
So it was a panel of 10 people you hadn't met before that were...
Yeah, that I've only talked to via email. So even Travis's wife, I know Travis really well. We even spent a hotel room, we're drunk in a hotel room together in Tulsa. So I don't know if I told you that. I've never gotten to talk to her before. So this is the first time I got to talk to her too. So, but yeah, it was just the panel of people that when I put the call out a couple weeks ago, I did it on my chat and on your chat. They just emailed me and said, we'd love to be a part of it. So,
yeah, I'll have to go back and watch it. Everyone else will have to. Now, tell everybody what channel it's on. Is it on your Mr. Matt, or is it on your
Never Enough Ammo channel? I got that channel back 100% again, so I'm doing all my live chats and podcasts on that one again. So okay. It's on the main channel now. They've decided to bless me with my ability to live stream again now that my strike is worn off.
So, what was the answer? Is there a racist problem in police officers, and are women oppressed?
By and large, they felt no. They said there are some issues here and there, and in some areas, like there is problems with racist cops, obviously, and obviously it is a thing. I think we all agreed that by and large, cops tend to have a higher likelihood of being an asshole. And, you guys know I'm obviously not a... I think we all...
They did have a higher likelihood of being an asshole?
Yeah, they did have a higher likelihood of being an asshole.
You have to be. You kind of have to be, because to be a police officer, you have to be the kind of person that can chase a little old lady out of a doorway at night, even though she's homeless, just because the property owner says he wants you to do it, and you can't let that destroy you.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of have a hard shell, which is one of the reasons I wasn't suited for law enforcement. That was a mistake for me to go to it, because I stuff like that would bother me constantly. So. And as far as the women thing, I don't know if it's so much that women are oppressed. Is it just that they get kind of a bad lot in the fact that they're women and they have to have children they don't have to. If you want to have children, it's, you don't get to choose whether the husband's going to have them or not. So they end up missing time at work, ended up falling behind, Now,
we didn't get into the equal pay thing. It was more about, because there's all the statistics. 1 in 4 women will be sexually assaulted in college. And it's like at that level, I'm like, well, then why would I ever send my daughter to college, right? And so we talked about that kind of stuff and the Me Too movement. And are women really oppressed and victims and all this kind of stuff? And you got to acknowledge that bad stuff happens to people. And when it does, we need to take care of that. And when there are genuinely victims. And obviously, there are probably going to be, when it comes to that type of assault, there are going to be more women that fall prey to that than men. It's just how it goes.
Also, I was in college at Marshall University. This is undergraduate school. When I was in undergraduate school, of course, I was a psychology major, and I was an art education and psychology major. And we did some studies into harassment, like that whole, back then they would say, 1 in 4 women will be raped in college. kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And we found that it wasn't so much that 1 in 4 women would be raped. It's that 1 in 4 women would make a sexual decision while under the influence of alcohol that they later regretted.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and that's why you have to be able to weed this stuff out, because what happens is, yes, there are bad things that happen, but yes, there's also exactly what you're talking about there. But we sit there and let these people push this agenda like it's the end of the world, and all women are just victims and in danger all the time, and we have to believe everything that they say when they say this stuff. And you don't want to believe that anybody is lying about it, but like some do. You have to.
I was part of the Greek council, and a lot of the charges of sexual assault would eventually go away as soon as the boyfriend agreed to get back with them, or just whatever. They would drop their story because they realized they weren't going to go back together, or it was a lot of just, especially Southern girls. They're vindictive, so they'll kick your ass and ruin your life. So. But yeah, it was good to hear that you had a good chat over there. We'll probably go talk about a lot of the same things tonight that we talked about last night in your chat. I remember.
I
don't think G-Webs was there towards the end. I don't think he came in for the actual much of the chat, just towards the end there.
I didn't get a link yesterday, so all I got to do is watch it.
I didn't see you on Gun Channels.
No, by the time I got there, I had shitty internet, and by the time I got there, you guys were full and rocking. So
okay,
yeah. I have shitty internet too, but I actually got a link yesterday. One of the few times he actually sent me a link. FJ Amato says he just got a Beretta Inox Tomcat, and he's asking if I have any feeding issues with Underwood ammo. I have not. The only thing I've shot through it though are the funky looking ones. Those I forget what they're called, extreme cavitators or something like that. They come to like a little. They look like a little Allen head screw or something. But no, I didn't have any problem with those feeding. NEA chat was awesome. Best panel ever. And that looks like that covers that, because this is not really a super chat night. One of the things we're going to talk about is we are going to talk about, as we talked about in your chat last night, we are going to talk about Alex Jones being banned from social media. That's one of the things we're going to talk about. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, because I think we all don't think all that much about it, because I know I didn't think that much about it. I don't like
I could give a crap about, but for me,
I don't like Alex Jones. I think he's a charlatan. I think he's a shill. I think he is a snake oil salesman. I think his opinions blow whichever way he thinks he can rile up his viewers the most, and he can encourage them to buy the most supplements. And I think that's the only thing he's beholden to. I don't think he believes his own stuff. Sometimes you can tell when someone actually believes their stuff, and then you can tell when someone's giving you a theatrical performance.
I think he's giving a theatrical performance, but I also think that he has been doing it long enough that he is starting to buy into his own craft.
I don't know if he does or not, because when you see him like in a court hearing or stuff, like where he's being sued by the Parkland, or not the Parkland,
yeah, that's true.
Totally different. He says totally different things. He uses totally different mannerisms. I think he's a fucking theater major. But does that mean we want to see him removed from social media? Because we talked about, social media has the right to remove someone. Now, we are required by the internet providers are required by law to allow us access. They can't just tell us you don't get to have internet. But independent businesses like YouTube, Google, whatever, they don't have to offer service to anyone. Now, there is a big argument as to whether if they get so big they're the only thing, do they have to be different? Because now, are they different than just a private industry? They're not. That's not the way the industry works. Now, some people last night argued, basically that, well, do the rights of the many outweigh the right of the few or the one? And I'm like, well, that's a different concept. If you want to write the law regarding the internet in a more socialist manner that says the right of all the people to have internet access overweighs the individual right of a private business, that would be one thing. But it isn't written that way, so they can ban people if they violate policy.
Yeah.
But they say they banned him for hate speech and violent speech. And the thing about it is they don't seem to care when certain people use hate speech or violent speech. Like, it is not hard to find some Antifa person speaking poorly about someone else, that's not of their beliefs, it is not unusual to find a black person speaking very negatively about white people on YouTube. And if you're going to, and people will say, well, because white people have all the power, we're going to give them a pass. Well, that's okay if you want to say that openly. But here's the thing: if you're a business signing contracts with people and you're going to enforce the rules, it has to be universal or not at all. And I can understand if someone wants to come to me and say, do you think black people have a reason to be angry at white people? I'd be like, oh, well, kinda. Where was that whole slavery thing and coming here against their will? Everybody's free to leave now, of course, but generationally, yeah, they've got kind of a reason to be mad, but there's no reason for them to get a free pass on civil discourse or hate speech or violent speech because of it. It doesn't have to be tolerated on a platform, but then they're afraid, we'll be called racist if we ding Spike Lee for saying something that Rush Limbaugh said, that we ding Rush Limbaugh for.
Well, it's racist to think that all people of one color are responsible for all atrocities in the past. I mean, there's plenty of people that came over here decades after any, that kind of stuff was an issue.
My family came over after, so we didn't have anything to do with it. Not that slavery didn't exist in other nations too.
It doesn't matter because according to everybody on the internet, you enjoy white privilege, so it doesn't matter.
Well, we do. I mean, I don't think any of us will sit here and argue that there isn't a certain amount of privilege to being white.
Well, it depends on what you mean by white privilege. You mean that the cop's less likely to get worried about me? Yes, yeah. Until I hand them my carry card, which I'm liable to have to do in Texas, and then they fucking put their hand on their gun and snap the little fucking thing off, the thumb break off, because I've had that happen to me more than once.
Oh yeah.
But overall, yes. Now, if you're talking about I in my life have benefited from a system put in place somehow that I have achieved things in my life, whether it be my job or money or anything like that, because I'm white, that's bullshit because I haven't. Because I've been poor more in my life than I've been able to take care of all the things I needed to take care of and then have a little money on top of that. I didn't get into college because I was fucking white, because all the scholarships went to people who weren't white, and I didn't have the money to go to college. Couldn't have it. Didn't know. It wasn't the thing. I got less privileges growing up because I was white. So I call bullshit on that completely across the board.
There are still a lot of privileges. I mean,
look, I'm saying there are probably some aspects of white privilege that you in maybe how other people look.
I don't think it really applies much anymore.
It doesn't have to be financial. If you can walk into a place and feel comfortable, and then somebody else can walk into a place and have everyone in the place turn and look at them, isn't that part of it? And
and that's what I'm saying. There may be some aspects in that how people look at you or judge you that we may have some benefits from. I don't know. I can
time getting loans. I mean, if you make the same amount of money as a black person applying for the same loan, the white person is far more likely to get approved for the loan. If I go to the 7-Eleven, the clerk doesn't follow me around the store, So there is privilege to being white. But the thing is, a lot of people seem to make it think like, oh, we're white people, so we get everything for free. Remember the Eddie Murphy thing on Saturday Night Live where he pretended to be a white guy and he's trying to buy a paper and he starts to hand the guy money and he's like, what are you doing? There's nobody else here. Just take it.
Yeah, I know. But there's a prevailing theory that is true now, that if you're white, you are somehow economically advantaged. And I can say from personal experience, unless it's just me, that ain't true. Maybe people have treated.
I think it's gone now to the only way to have a true advantage in this country is to be the elite, black or white. Like you can't tell me, what's the Godfather's Pizza CEO, the rich guy, he was black. You can't tell me his kids don't have an easier time in life than I do. I mean, I was born dirt poor, had to claw my way for everything I had. Now I did have an advantage of being at the time, an attractive white guy. So that helps, it never hurts. When a business wants to hire someone, they usually try to hire more attractive people, and they like to hire people that they want to front their business. So that was an advantage of me getting jobs sometimes. But as far as being given a hand up out of the gutter because I was white, it never happened for me. I mean, I had to work and join the military to go to college. Even though I had a 3.92 grade point average in high school, I got 1 B all through high school. So there is white privilege, and I understand that they're looked down upon, and there's generational poverty. But I don't understand the white privilege quite as much. Mainly, maybe if we came from like upper middle class families, we would understand the white privilege thing more because we had those generational advantages. I didn't have those generational advantages. I was born poor as a church mouse. You know, I lived in a house once that was originally a chicken coop. They converted into a house, and it still had dirt floors in the living room.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I grew up in a primarily black neighborhood in South Dallas. I mean, we were poor growing up, you know. And that's so I you know, maybe it's just my perspective. Maybe and see, that's the beauty. And this goes into the chat we had earlier today. That's the beauty of having conversations with people. I don't have a problem with admitting maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about something. Maybe I'm wrong about white privilege. I have not experienced in my life that I know of, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I'd rather have conversations than sit there and yell at each other about it. You know?
I know I have had privileges. I know there's lots of times that I got away with things because I was a white guy. You know, that a black guy probably wouldn't have gotten away with.
You guys don't have to personally profit from it for it to be. It can be that other people are not able to succeed because of it, and then that's a thing, and you don't get to experience that.
And I think there's still a lot of racism in a lot of places. I know I meet a lot of racists. Trust me.
I don't
even a lot of people think they'll have a gut challenge.
I don't think it has to be racist. I think it's just that subtlety of everyone. You know, I've seen like the stuff like just the moving the purse to the other side when somebody of color comes up behind you in line. And it's just that little shit that isn't, I don't know if that's racist or if it's just cultural or what the hell. I mean, it'd be the same if a dirty vagrant of any kind came up. But if someone perceives that as a race thing and not a what I'm wearing type of thing, you know what I mean? Then there's a lot to it. And
I can't tell you, I can't attest to this. I myself have done that very thing where I got nervous being around people of a certain color. But it was when I went up to Kansas with my wife when we were on a road trip. And I've been living in the valley down here in South Texas for so long. I don't see white people on a regular basis. And I went to Kansas, and I remember turning to my wife when we were at a Walmart picking up some stuff for the hotel and going, I feel uncomfortable. There's too many white people here. Does that count? Because I'm sitting, no, seriously, it felt weird being in a place. I live down in South Texas where it's primarily Hispanic. My wife is Hispanic. My kids are half Hispanic. I'm just used to that. Everybody I know and work with primarily is Hispanic. It was weird being in a place where there were so many white people. Does that count?
Does it have to be racist though? If it's just a cultural thing?
I don't think it's racist. No, it's racist at all.
And it's just a generational thing too. It's also a generational thing because people were brought here against their will at one point in time. And then we got to admit that our country wrote law after law after law, even after they were freed, to make sure that they didn't obtain equality. In fact, most gun laws were written for racist basis on racist principles. So here we have generations of people that have now suffered are in a place where they shouldn't be at historically because they weren't allowed to progress naturally. They were held down for generation after generation. And we do have to culp to that because it did happen in our country. I mean, Jim Crow laws, most of the gun laws, etc. We had to have a Civil Rights Act just to make sure we could go to school together. You know,
but again, we didn't vote on that, and that happened a long time ago. And since then, we're also the country that stopped that shit.
Yeah, we did. A lot of us stood up and stopped that. No, we didn't. We weren't here. I was a baby during the civil rights movement. But no, actually, I'm going to claim that I wasn't born yet. That makes me seem younger. But
can I say from the chat that I did tonight, I had 4 people on there who were black, and they all said we are far less racist today than we ever have been, and it's an absolute shame that everything that happened during 8 years of Obama made things worse. That we were on a better path until the Democrats got into power, and also people who were liberal. Some of the people in the chat were liberal, and they felt that.
I don't think very many people think Obama's presidency was that successful. I think they like to pretend to because then they have to admit that
it could have actually been good. It could have continued the good progress we were making with race relations in the country. It could have done. I remember growing up in the 80s and the 90s when, you know, once a year, and I told this story on the chat, when the 20 guys who were in the Ku Klux Klan in Georgia would walk through the streets with their flags and everybody just laughed at them because it was a joke, because nobody cared anymore at that point, and they were a throwback to a time nobody wanted to go back to. And now dudes dancing around in Charlottesville with tiki torches. You know?
But here's the thing, though. We have to remember Obama didn't make these people racist. These people were already racist. We just have a culture now where they feel more comfortable coming out.
I agree and I disagree in that I think some people feel like, because I've met and talked to some of these people who went to the alt-right after 8 years of being called.
The reason they feel that way is because they're racist. If they weren't racist, they would have said Obama's just a shit president. They wouldn't have said he's a black man trying to do stuff for black people.
Look, I have to 99% agree with you, but I also have to account for the fact that some people become the way they are based on the things they experience. And I guarantee you there are some people, not that it makes it right, it's not right. They're still assholes and racist. But there are some people who would not have gone that direction and who would not have been that person had they not felt like they were being put upon and called racist all the time anyway. Fuck it, I might as well do it. That doesn't make it right.
No, I don't think that, because if someone called you a fag all the time and you weren't actually gay, you wouldn't be like, well, I might as well start sucking dick.
You know, I don't know. I'm just saying, you never know.
Well, that ain't why you did it.
Somebody calls you thin all the time, you don't magically get thin. I mean, you can't change somebody from calling.
Yeah, racism comes from deep down inside. Believe me, I was born and raised to be a racist. My father is an enormous racist. My grandfather was a Klan level racist. When I came of age, I was able to say, you guys are disgusting. You know, still respect them as my family and everything, but say your ideas on race are disgusting, because I, as a person, don't feel that way. And no one would feel that way.
You were able to. You weren't ostracized for saying that. You know, the country evolves and you're able to stand up to that shit.
Yep. But now we got a lot of people. The reason the people under Obama who came out and said, yeah, I'm going to be a racist, they were really already racist, but a lot of other people hated Obama and they stood up and they're like, hey, these other racists are standing up. I can stand up. It was not, they didn't get peer pressured into being racist. They just felt more comfortable expressing their racism.
Yeah, they came out, the rug was shaken and they came out, but I think that it took that.
But there's not more of them. I still think there's less of them. I just think the ones that there now are more willing to speak out.
And of course, the media wants to divide and keep us divided, so it's going to shine the light on the rare instances of the most extreme ones. But we also have to look at it all happened while Facebook was growing and YouTube was growing. So we're, as a culture, developing, you know, our ability to do stuff on social media and get data from different places and memes and everything. So, you know, racism is a part of our culture, and it had to come up and be part of this, you know, because of Obama and stuff. So I think that we have a fluctuation. I'd be suspicious if we were in a straight line. So it makes sense that when Obama comes in, it's not a perfect win just because he's a president of color. You know, it's not like, boom, we're going to the next level. I mean, there's some fluctuation that gives us perspective and allows us to see where we're, you know, wrong, and we can correct things.
And I'm not trying to defend bigotry or racism with my next statement at all, but I don't think you'll ever totally eradicate racism unless we all become beige people, because genetically inborn into us through evolution is a mistrust of anyone that doesn't look like us. Because if we were out hunting or just gathering and we ran across someone who looked different than us, that meant they were probably from a different tribe, a different group of people, and very good chance they would kill us rather than talk to us. So it's just a thing about it. You're bred to not trust people that aren't like you. That's just, as we grew up as pack animals, we were pack animals. So you trusted your pack. You didn't trust your other pack. You know, if someone was from a different tribe, you didn't trust them. And that happens now. Now just tribalism has been replaced by nationalism, you know, but there still is going to be some racism no matter what.
I think there's always racism. I don't know that for me though. I mean, I feel like if there was some deep, even if it'd been whittled down to just a small sliver of my DNA, if there was some piece of me somewhere in me that had some slight distrust of anybody that looked different than me, then I never would have married my wife. I would have found it.
I'm very accepting, but still, if someone walks up behind me dressed like some sort of fucking gangbanger with gold teeth, I'm going to be like, I'm going to put my hand on my wallet.
It's different than race. You know what I mean? That you're not.
No, but it's the same principle. Normally, if we weren't the type of people who judged anybody by physical characteristics, the way someone's dressed would mean nothing to us. So we put a lot of emphasis on the appearance of another person, and do they look like me or do they not look like me? Some people will be more likely to accept whether they're black or Asian or whatever. As long as they're wearing a polo shirt and khakis, they're good. You know, they differentiate their tribe by those people that wear the football jerseys and the baggy pants are not my tribe. You know, so they make me nervous. Bigotry will always exist in some manner. It doesn't always have anything to do with race.
Well, that makes more sense if you're judging somebody based on their perception, not because of the color of skin. Because again, I live and breathe in an area that's primarily Hispanic, and I see some people that I'm like, I don't want to fucking that dude behind me and that dude over there. For some reason, I just trust him instinctively, and it can be based. It's not based on the fact that they're both Hispanic, but one may be dressed like dog shit and have a bunch of fucking tattoos, and the other dude is just wearing normal clothes, blue jeans, and a t-shirt. I'm automatically going to trust one over the other, but that's not because of the color of their skin. It's, you know. So I think that I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about fucking evolution and all that shit.
It's even like if you see someone on the road and someone's driving an old banged up beater and you don't want to ride next to me, you're like, I'm not driving next to this guy. This guy probably doesn't have any insurance and blah, blah, blah. If he hits me, you know, whereas if they're in like a nice new Honda Civic, you're going to not think anything about it. You know, we base a lot on appearances, and that's why differences matter a little bit. We have to overcome those. I mean, I know now there's a lot of people that I would never have spoken to when I was younger that became my best friends in high school and college. You know, I never would have spoken to them because they were different than me. And I would have missed out on a lot of things. I would have never got to go to Korea when I was in high school. I would have never got to do a lot of things if I had not been more open to different things. So, I mean, you never seem to harm yourself. You never hurt yourself by opening yourself up to new experiences, but
unless it's
that ability. But still, that ability when we're walking down the street at, 11:30 at night and there's someone really fucking shady looking standing in the shadows on your side of the street, you walk across the street, that's still a good instinct to have. So you don't want to totally get rid of your biases or your bigotry, because a lot of bigotry is a safety mechanism to make you avoid danger.
But that's why I think, I mean, even, again, that's why I think it's I think our learned behavior has more to do with what even if there is some sliver of us in the back of our head that makes us at least take a second look if somebody looks different than us, I think it had more to do with your experiences throughout life. I mean, like I said, I grew up in a primarily black neighborhood. I've lived the last 18 years in a primarily Hispanic area of Texas, and those things have never really affected me the way obviously some people did. So I kind of just look at it like, well, if you're racist because you fucking had some shit happen to you. You fucking grew up with the wrong people. To me, it's never occurred to me that a person is racist because that's just how they're born. You know what I mean? Or whatever. I feel like there's got to be some learned behavior there. Their parents were racist or something else. And on top of that, they had some experiences growing up. And I mean, because you take a kid and you yell the N-word at him his entire life, and he's a little white kid, and say those people are bad and they're evil and they just want to screw whatever it is, they're taking our jobs, whatever the hell it is you're saying. If you're a racist,
by the N-word you mean Nabisco, right?
Nabisco, yes. Then I think that obviously that kid has a higher likelihood of being fucked up than a kid who just grows up with nobody saying those things to them. I think that has a lot. That's got to have a lot to do with it, right? I mean, you are a psychologist, right? I mean, that's got to have a lot to do with it. I mean, even though you obviously went through some stuff and didn't have that happen to you, and that's awesome. But it's got to affect you on a certain level. And
there's always the nurture versus nature, and part of who you are is genetic. We are genetic beings. Our DNA defines who we are. But nurture also has a big effect on if we're raised a certain way, we feel certain ways, like if you take identical twins and separate them, usually they still look identical even if they weren't raised together, but they could have very different belief systems. One could be a white supremacist and the other could be, an Antifa member because their environment was different. So you learn a lot of your behaviors. You're inborn with certain instincts, just like your dog has instincts. And fear of things that are different is an instinct. Like I say, it's one we shouldn't always totally ignore because it is a safety mechanism. But we have higher functioning brains. So we are allowed to take in information from our environment and our experiences and say, wait, this actuality, this evidence outweighs my biases, and therefore my bias is unbased. Some people never bothered to do that, but we have the ability.
Yeah.
And I did that. When I started being exposed to more blacks, I started saying, you know, the biggest difference between me and them, other than penis size, of course, I'm much, much bigger, but was the fact that they liked, you know, they had a slightly different culture, and their skin pigmentation was different. But most of the differences between us were cultural, not.
They probably also, let's be honest, they probably had better taste in food too. Okay.
No, I'm a Southern, so we all ate the same food. I mean, we all grew up eating the same thing.
You're right.
Yeah, so we all grew up fried chicken and, you know, pig's feet and, you know.
Oh, I never got into the pig's feet thing. That I couldn't do. I love the homemade mac and cheese, the fried chicken, all that kind of stuff. I'm down with.
You ain't been gnawing between the toes on a pig's foot.
I could never get into pig's feet. That was just something I couldn't do. So that was a line I did not cross.
We didn't waste anything. We butchered a pig. You ate pork rinds. You ate pig's feet. My grandmother would make stuff out of the face meat, you know, make stews and stuff out of the face.
Throwing down fried bologna sandwiches. Thank you, sir.
Oh, I love fried bologna. Fried bologna killed my grandmother, though.
I like to do a mixed fried bologna with the grilled cheese. So you put cheese on both sides of the fried bologna. Well, you fry the bologna first, then you put cheese on both sides of the bread, put it in there, and then fry it again in butter. And you got yourself a fried bologna grilled cheese sandwich.
My grandmother had heart problems, and that's what killed her. And her cholesterol was so high, she would eat fried bologna every day. That's what she ate for lunch every day. And the doctor told her, no more fucking fried bologna. It's killing you. You've got issues. So she kept a big log of bologna over at my mom's house and would sneak over and eat fried bologna over there every day instead of eating it in her house while my mom was at work. So, and then she ended up dying of a heart attack. So, boy, how did we get down this trail? I thought we were talking about Alex.
But your grandmother died doing something she loved. So, I mean, you know,
smoking and eating fried bologna.
If that's what you love, then there you go.
My grandmother was quite the character. I remember once we were at church, and my grandfather was not really my biological grandfather. He was her second husband, but he'd been her second husband since I was like 5. So he'd always, you know, I knew my other grandfather, but I've known him longer. But he was very religious, and he was a deacon in the church and everything. And my grandmother and him, towards the end of they just, you know, they loved each other, but she didn't think highly of him because he was very racist and this other stuff. And I remember once we went to church and my grandfather wasn't there because he just had heart surgery. And the pastor and the deacons were all standing there. You know how when you leave the church in a Southern Baptist church, they're all standing there and they all go through and bless you and shake hands and talk about what, you know. So we're going through the line, and the pastor standing with the deacon says, well, Nancy, how's Howard doing? How's Howard? Which is my grandfather. And she goes, he's the goddamn devil and he will burn in hell someday. And I remember all of them just falling down laughing because they couldn't believe she said it out loud. She's like, I'm not kidding. You all think he's all good and nice because he comes up here and acts all good and nice. He's the fucking devil and he will burn. And they loved that.
I feel like that's going to be my wife at some point.
Yeah. The women in my family don't have the ability
or anything, but just other shit.
My family does not have the ability. The women in my family don't have the ability to censor what they think from what they say. So I guess we can move on to another topic.
Sure.
We want to talk now about the NRA going bankrupt. You know, they've got like a couple of days left, I would say.
Oh yeah, apparently. You know, so there's that. Really, do we care about the NRA at this point? Like, if they legitimately did go bankrupt, I think I would. For a split second, I'd go, well, necessary evil, and then go, fuck it. You know, and I would then realize that everybody would just start giving their money to the GOA and, you know, some of these other organizations, and we'd be fine.
Well, the Second Amendment Foundation actually helps out way more often than the NRA. Even like I said in the Young case recently that we just won in the Ninth Circuit, the NRA wouldn't touch it because it wasn't profitable, and plus it doesn't serve their end. They don't want any major judgments that say, yeah, every single individual in this country has the right to own and carry a handgun, because if that happened, there goes their bread and butter. So they didn't participate.
Like you said in your video, though, they in a lawsuit they've got to claim distress. So
Yeah. You have to show that you're like, oh my God, everything's going to go. This is going to be the domino that completely destroys our business if we don't win this case. That's the way you have to write your lawsuits. So it's mostly bluster.
Or it's like, we've got a house of cards here, and if you take this down, we could crumble, and you got to make it fragile so that there's a reason for the legislation. So
I'm not really worried about them going bankrupt, but I really don't care, to be honest. Like I said, I would much rather see that money go to SAFE or GOA. I know Gun Websites is a big supporter of SAFE, aren't you?
SAFE? What?
Yeah, what am I saying?
Second Amendment Foundation, you mean?
Yeah, Second Amendment Foundation, yeah.
But here's the thing. I don't know much about this because I've been finishing the art for the cards pretty much 24/7. So I've heard this in chats and stuff, but I haven't actually seen the story. But my question is, without knowing the details, is there a bigger issue that the NRA is potentially doing something here? Because isn't this something about the banks not taking their money or not accepting their money?
It's about their insurance program, because USCCA and other groups were having a pretty profitable business of running an insurance for people who carry firearms. NRA said, hey, these guys are making money. We're a lot bigger than them. We have a lot more marketing ability. We can put them out of business and we can make that money. And they did. And then the state of New York and other states filed charges against them, basically saying that you can't be doing this. You're doing
it's like not insurable.
Yeah, it's something that's not insurable in the way you're doing it. And whereas it is, if you have the insurance, it will work if you get charged. But they were saying, because they don't want the NRA to be doing this, sometimes you don't want to bring a lot of attention to something you do until it's already needed, not beforehand. So because they thought they could strike at the NRA this way, they said, well, you can't do this, and we're going to cut off your funding for your insurance program. And that caused them a lot of issues because they want to make this money. And now they can't as easily. So, and they are trying, and banks are trying to blacklist groups like the NRA and stuff if they think they're too big of a risk. But there's always going to be some bank that will take your banking.
Well, that's true. But then we have the NRA as our battleship or our aircraft carrier, our big, whatever item in the arsenal to do things that are of big reach and that other companies or other organizations either can't deal with or don't have the right funds, resources or funding or whatever. So is this something, even though if you don't have a good taste for the NRA, we need them to be there to fight that fight with New York and the banks and that, so set some precedent?
I actually don't know, because from the way I read it, there was really no positive to come from the NRA's suit. It wasn't going to say, oh, all banks have to deal with all customers, because that's not going to happen. Banks get to choose who they deal with. In fact, I think it just makes it even. This is clearly a case the NRA is just protecting their financial interests. And I think it actually has the potential of bringing more backlash against other gun rights groups than anything else. Because if New York would have said, we're not banking with you, the banks of New York, and the NRA would just say, well, fine, we're going to go to a Florida bank, then no one would have thought anything of it. But since they're making a big deal out of it, these other banks in other states are going to be like, oh, well, they cut off them and got away with it. So we're going to cut off, gun owners of America, or single action, Second Amendment Foundation. So I don't see much positive coming from this. This wasn't a fight for our rights. This was clearly a fight for their profit.
Yeah, that's the way to sum it up. Is this a rights issue or just something else?
Someone says, can you, Outsider 503 says, can someone explain to me why jurisdictions apply to what is supposed to be a constitutional right? Well, that's because a lot of lawyers and judges, even Scalia, have said, well, you get to put reasonable restrictions, but they never had the balls to say what is reasonable and what isn't. So you get all these states and counties. And then there's also people who mistakenly say, well, it should be a state issue, because federal government can't do that. And I'm like, oh, no, it shouldn't even be a state issue, because it's a federal constitutional issue. States can't say, well, we don't believe in civil rights. They have to abide by civil rights because it's a federal issue. Second Amendment's a federal issue. So in my opinion, those jurisdictions should not apply when you carry a gun. It should be just whatever the national standard based on the Constitution would be, which would be any legal citizen of this country can own and carry a firearm. But everyone loves to put that, even when you think someone like Scalia is super on your side for gun rights, they're really not. They're on their side to keep power. That's why they always say these vague things like reasonable restrictions apply, because they love to do that. Jack of all, master of none says, per email, Forge from Freedom had to redo patches in mail now. Yeah, he had to get more. I only made like 50 of each patch or something, maybe 100 of each patch when I made those patches. So there's a lot. He had to get more to keep up. I thought by now no one else would do that level of.
Can I just call something out real quick? Yes, Gooey. I don't know if that's how you say it. Yes, Gooey. Guey. Like anyway, he says, "What do you think about Mac reliking Springfield again? Is this a thing? Does
Mac is kind of thrown in with Springfield Armory, and he said, "Oh, well, I heard their side of the story, and I believe it." And I'm just like, "No, I don't," because I heard their side of the story after it happened.
For Mac, but
yeah, I heard their side of the story when it happened, and their side of the story made no sense. They were scrambling for a reason why they did what they did, and it made no sense. It was unbelievable. And now they've had more time, I guess, to craft a story. But I never believe someone whose second lie is better than their first lie. So I don't think I'll trust Springfield Armory until that guy is gone. And they would have to show me different, not just tell me why I should. Yep. So I don't agree with him at all on that.
Well, as you know, I'm forever not a Springfield fan, even before all the drama last year.
I mean, I do agree with your opinion of them that they are cheap import guns with a logo that they bought at auction stamped on them, and then pretend to be like they have some sort of American.
If they had been completely honest and upfront about it, I wouldn't have a problem. Look, we're the new Springfield Armory, and we've been importing these guns, and we're doing 1911s, and we're trying to do these they're doing the M1As and all the other stuff that they're doing, and this is what we are, and this is who we are, and we wanted to use this name because we believe this name is just a great representation of the company. That's why we bought the rights to the name. I'd be completely on board, but they didn't do that. They bought the name, stamped since 1796 on all these Croatian-made guns, and then proceeded to go through an advertising campaign for 3 years as if they are an American-made gun. They misled the public about their gun. And yeah, sure, in small type it would say made in Croatia, but nobody was looking at that when they were buying the damn gun, because they saw these advertisements in Guns and Ammo magazine and everywhere else that, a piece of America. They literally used the header, a piece of American history. No, you're not even the same company, and it's a Croatian gun. They duped tons of people into buying this gun thinking that it was the actual Springfield when that company hasn't existed since the 1960s. So,
well, but you got to give Springfield one thing. I mean, one positive thing they did do. They did finally, after all these years of guns being made, Springfield finally had the sense to label on the gun where you're supposed to actually hold on to it.
Oh, thank you. Because before I had been confused. I've got so many bullet holes in my legs and my abdomen from where I was holding the gun improperly. And I am finally glad they told me where the grip zone was.
I got my dick stuck in the action so many fucking times because I didn't know how to properly hold the gun.
Exactly. So, it's such a jeez.
Dude, when you hold the metal part and fiddle with that trigger with your other hand, like it really hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
It really does.
Yeah. Someone finally had to do it. So,
yeah.
I've got a massive headache because I had I didn't have any caffeine last night, and I didn't have any this morning. And I'm one of these people that I usually get a big dose of caffeine right before I even go to bed, and it doesn't keep me awake because my body is so accustomed that it has to have caffeine to function that if I go more than like 10 hours without it, my body goes, I guess we're dying, and then lets me know we're dying. So I got such a headache because of that. I forget what we've talked about and what we haven't now because we did not stay much on topic at all.
Not at all.
We only got like 15 minutes left.
Real quick, Yankee, because we started off this chat, you were talking about the Alex Jones thing, and just real quick, because we got it, we disagreed last night on my chat, and so I just real quick, just wanted to explain better without 37 other people in the chat, and we were all kind of going back and forth with each other. what my issue was with the whole First Amendment and that kind of thing. And you were absolutely right when you were talking on the chat last night that as we stand right now, obviously these companies are, I mean, they're private companies. That's what they are. They can do what they want. They can ban who they want. You know, the contract issues that you talked about make perfect sense. My biggest issue with all of this isn't about where we're at right now, but it's about where are we going to go from here in 20, 10, 5, a year from now. I don't know when. At some point where we are going to become a society that relies on social media to express ideas and opinions. And we are quickly becoming that. We are quickly getting to the point to where companies, corporations, politicians even, they don't care about your letters. They don't care about your emails. They don't care about your phone calls. They care about what happens on social media. And as that becomes how society communicates, the same way that eventually society communicated online, and before that, over the airwaves, and before that, it was the phone, and before that, it was the press. As that becomes more and more of a thing, at what point does social media get so big to the point where we say, well, we have to enforce the First Amendment on social media because that's how people communicate in this world we live in? At what point do these companies not, as much as I'm the guy that says, look, fucking be an asshole if you don't want to bake a cake for somebody. I won't buy from you. I think you're an asshole and should go out of business, but I'm not going to sue you over it. At some point on social media, maybe it's not right now. Maybe it's not for another 5 years.
Basically what you're wanting to do, and I completely support your socialist idea that the needs of the many outweigh the need of the one. But what you're hoping that someday maybe it's a constitutional amendment that we have the right to free speech, we have the right to keep and bear arms, and at the internet, including any company that provides mass services to the people, is the part of free speech and is essential to everyday life, and therefore cannot be restricted beyond a very set limit of standards.
Yeah, because if we are getting to that point to where you have to have a social media presence to be heard. We are getting to that point to where you are not taken seriously. Sometimes at your job, sometimes with politicians. You know, it depends. And until the point to where we get to where we can all communicate with each other telepathically, social media is going to be the preferred outlet, like what we're doing right now, of communication with each other, of sharing ideas and thoughts and opinions. I mean, back when the founders created our country, they said, well, you know what? The press is really, really important, so we're going to protect it. Well, the press started out as just people that wanted to share the news of what was going on, and they said, that's valuable. We need to protect that. We need to make that open and free because that's how people gain information. Well, that's what social media is today. So, I mean, I understand what you were saying about companies being free to do it. And at this point in time, you're absolutely right. But I am worried about the day when social media is all that is accepted. That's where everybody goes. And I think that day is coming very, very fast. And if you are allowed to be kicked off of social media by...
Let's get there already that if you're cut off of 4 things, if you're cut off of Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and what's the 4th one? I knew what the 4th one was.
Instagram and
Instagram.
Yeah.
Then you're pretty much, you don't exist.
Yeah. And that's scary because people aren't listening to anything else. Like, people aren't listening to talk radio. People aren't listening to your local cable news access where you can go and get a show at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. You know, people aren't paying attention as much to the news. They're getting their information from social media. And if you know, just gun rights, for instance, if pro-gun people don't have an outlet on social media, if social media turns on us, which they already have, just not completely, like they could, I want
to address something. It was like Emptiness says real quick before you continue here. He says rich people can't be forced to hear poor people. History has proven that to be totally false. The many times in history that the rich people were pulled from their houses into the street by the mobs of people that had nothing now because of them. So they can be forced to hear, but usually they don't get to hear it for very long after they are.
I'd like to point out how blatantly sexist Yankee is by pronouncing history his story.
It's
so sexist.
It's not called herstory, is it? If women were important, it would be called herstory. Yeah.
But now that was just the point I wanted to make, because I know we got into it, but then a lot of people started getting into it last night. So I didn't get to make myself clear in that particular point.
In the future, I mean, we might have to, and there are a lot of things that are public, are sort of private businesses. Like my local PUD is a private business, but other than not paying for your services, they can't deny services to anybody.
Yeah.
They can't say, well, you don't get power because you voted for Romney. You know, they can't do that, not legally. And maybe the internet and any service that uses the internet should start being considered a utility. And you can be a private utility, but it still has to allow that all people get equal, unfettered access to that utility. Now, you can have rules like, well, you can't show animal cruelty, you can't show your dick, you can't do things like that. That's
I mean, it's free. If you're going along the lines of freedom of speech, it's, look, if you are committing a crime, if it would be a crime if you were doing it right in front of somebody's face, then yes, obviously doing it online is obviously also a crime. Makes perfect sense. You know, I get that.
Oh, so Facebook and whatever is big right now, but just because you have an account on there and you get banned, you're still an individual, and you can still join some live conversation that someone with an account is including you in. You can still go anywhere on the internet and do things of value, create content, and it can be referenced. In fact, the only way social platforms work is that things are referenced many, many, many times. That's how they get popular, and that's how they get the numbers that get them moved around or whatever. So I don't agree that you need to regulate business as a utility simply because it's large, especially on the internet where things change. Facebook and YouTube haven't been around long enough to claim they're the future and the only way that the internet's going to go.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of regulating anything on the internet. I was against the whole what was it called? The internet. Now I can't remember what the hell it was called.
Right, the one where they gave it to Europe, or you're talking about
what was it called? Internet or freedom, net neutrality. Thank you, net neutrality. That was what it was. I was against that. Period, across the board. And then Yankee dropped out. Hopefully, he will hop back in. He might have got hit with bad internet. I was completely against that. I don't like the idea of the government coming in and regulating anything. But if things change and technology changes, and now all of a sudden the internet is where free speech is, where speech is happening, because we've evolved again. Like I said, I mean, we went from, it was freedom of the press. It was then, the telegraph service, the mail, the telephone, TV, radio, it progresses. And we've allowed these things. We've said, look, you have to be fair to people. You can't just silence them. You can't just not allow somebody to have a voice because you don't like their opinion in these areas. That's part of freedom of speech.
But we never said, like, hey, you've got a really large newspaper. You've got a really large magazine distribution.
True. And you're absolutely right. So there's obviously a lot of minutia to it, right? Like, it's not just cut and dry. And I acknowledge that. It's not cut and dry, And so and I'm not saying I have the answer to anything. I don't know how you fix that.
I think that I see a possible thing where Facebook continues to do draconian stuff, and a certain amount of people love that shit. I mean, Democrats and that like big state, or like the idea of let things happen with scale. So let police and roads and stuff be done by everybody's taxes. I can understand that. They just want so much of it. Anyway, they would love that idea of a Facebook that, regulates what's going on in the internet.
Until Zuckerberg dies in a few decades and the Koch brothers' kids
owns it. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Trump in charge of it, and they'll hate Facebook, right? They'll all jump off. But I guess what I'm saying is they keep fractioning, people that they don't like. That's fine, and then eventually they'll fracture, on people on a bigger one, a more important one, or a more pivotal one. And then what you'll get is a lot of these side ones that show up, and then people will figure out, having just one flavor isn't all that great. Having just McDonald's, while it's convenient and nice, and we know that it's consistent, it's nice to have a Burger King and a Wendy's and some other stuff once in a while.
Did Yankee freeze up again?
Yankee froze. He's probably jumping
again. Shit. Okay, next time he pops in, let's just stop talking so he can do whatever he needs to do. Because anyway, yeah, no, I mean, again, until he pops back in, we'll see if that happens. I mean, I ride that line. I mean, if for anybody that watches me, and gee, you know me, I don't like government interference. I'm very libertarian. But what's going on social media right now, with the way that people look at social media, it's scary to think.
Can anybody hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Am I breaking up real bad because I'm on my?
You're good now.
You're good now. Yeah.
Okay, just wondering. Oh, someone said something about your PUD is privately held. Yeah, a lot of it in these smaller areas, a lot of utility companies are privately held, which they're allowed to be. They're just regulated by the public utilities laws of your state, but it's a private industry. A lot of public utilities are private industries. Actually, they're just regulated by public laws.
Yeah. No, they do that down here in Brownsville, Texas. It's a private utility board. Did he pop out and in again? Are you there, Yankee? I feel like this is frozen. Yankee, can you hear
So it worked. Our plan is to pay his kids to plug in the Xbox while we're on the show.
Yeah, they're up there. I know they're up there fucking playing their video games. That's what it is. Can y'all hear me again?
We can hear you. You want to just end it now? You only got 4 minutes left anyway.
Yeah, we got 4 minutes to go. Does you guys got anything to promote?
Freedom, Liberty, gunchannels.com. Hit up my, I'm not calling it the Diversity Podcast anymore, but that's basically what it is. It's called the Open Liberty Podcast. And yeah.
Why don't you just call it a podcast?
We call it a what?
Just call it the Bunch of Weirdos Podcast.
I don't know, maybe. I just wanted to take the word diversity out of it. It seemed too pandering and it seemed too left wing, so I had to change the name.
Yeah. Yeah, if nobody else has got anything to promote, we only got 3 minutes left here, and I don't know if I'm coming through well or if I'm
no, we can hear you good. So why don't we end it while we can still hear you good?
We can end it while we can still hear me. I don't have anything to promote. I just want to thank everyone that has supported my channel, everyone that keeps making it possible to do the TYMP pistol project. I gave one, which was the public defender. That guy never did get back to me, I finally got him to get back to me, and he got back to me going, stop sending me these hoax emails or something like that. So he sent another email to like my other, this person is sending me these emails saying I want it. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to send you your fucking gun. Give me your damn information.
Let me take care of it. Next email you get from me, I'll send you an FFL address. You just send it there.
I finally got it sent to him today. So he should be getting it. And I still haven't weekend yet. So hopefully we'll hear from her soon. But I wanted to thank everyone that came tonight. Thanks to everyone that makes this possible and it makes the TYMP Pistol Project possible. To sign out now, because like I said, my kids are upstairs playing video games. I'm sure of it. So I don't know how much longer we're going to last. So I'll just go ahead and sign out and tell everyone we will see you again in 2 weeks. And I'll see you again on Sunday.